This episode of Where Did the Road Go is brought to you in part by our Patreons. If you want to become a patron, go to wheredidtheroadgo.com. And now our show.
Transmission start. Welcome to Where Did the Road Go? Join us as we wander off the path and explore lost history, consciousness, the paranormal, unexplained mysteries, alternative thought, and much more. We are present on the web at wheredidtheroadgo.com. Now here is your host, Seriah.
All right, quick intro to tonight's show. We recorded this Friday night, October 5th, with Adam Sayne and Greg Bishop, but that was not the original plan. This news show that you're going to hear came together very, very quickly because almost everyone that was going to do it ended up not being able to do it at the last minute. So I had Adam, and we ended up getting Greg Bishop in, but Greg is on a cell phone while he's driving home. So the quality is a little sketchy here and there, and there's some background noise, and I apologize for that. But I really wanted at least two other people on a news show, and Greg was totally up for doing it and added a hell of a lot to it. So you'll have to, forgive the slightly sketchy audio quality. It's not as good as it normally is, but other than that, I hope you enjoy the show. Welcome to this edition of Where Did the Road Go? Tonight we are doing a sort of a fringe news show, and I have with me Adam Sayne.
What's up?
And Greg Bishop.
Again.
Howdy do.
And Greg is on a cell phone because he's driving.
Yeah,
we have another guest.
Yeah.
We have another guest, which is California road traffic.
Yes. So you'll have to...
What?
Road traffic.
Yes.
So you'll have to...
Pretty nice.
It's pretty nice what?
Highway speeds right now, so it's fine.
Ah, okay. Actually, the first thing I wanted to address before we get into the news articles we had pulled together, which Greg wasn't privy to and Adam didn't read, so I'll be, going over those.
Hey, I read the synopses.
I had gotten an email. I got an email from one of my listeners who was talking about David Paulides' appearance on Coast to Coast on Sunday with George Knapp. And I hadn't heard it.
Yes, I would.
Okay, so you could probably enlighten us a little, but he said that Paulides said there was a bombshell, and that he said that he had unleashed a bombshell because he what my listener John said was that Knapp said he had spoken with someone he can't reveal yet, very, very high in the government, who told Knapp that the David Paulides guy is on to something. So this high government official who Knapp says probably knows more about UFOs than anyone else on this planet, this guy is aware of David's work, and that blew David's mind, and that was the big bombshell.
Yeah, that happened. Yeah. What's not said is, one, who is this person? Two, why did they say it? And three, do they know what they're talking about?
Yeah, and that was actually, my actual response was, there's no actual information there. Like, it sounds really huge, but at the end, we don't know who said it or why.
Yeah.
Well, I always find it funny that people don't think that these high up people can be interested in the same things that they are interested in, just as like a hobby or an interest. It doesn't always have to be that they know something top secret.
True.
Right. I wish everything I said was taken really seriously by everybody because they thought it was important just because of my position.
Right.
So basically, what you're saying is that someone who's high up in the government might think David Paulides is onto something, but it might just be his opinion.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, of course it's his opinion, but we don't know anything past that. We don't know who the person is, why they're interested, what the connection is, and for what, like you said just a minute ago, what was the effect of saying that? Is he saying it because he believes it? Is he saying it because he wants Paulides to believe it? Is he saying it because he wants the Coast audience to believe it? What? I don't know.
Yeah. And
well,
and obviously it was okay for Knapp to say so because he mentioned it on the air on national radio.
Mm-hmm.
case in point, Seriah, is when I had a couple of people bring up with me about this was always someone that they said lent credibility to our UFOs or extraterrestrial hypothesis, and they'd always talk about Paul Hellyer, the guy from the Ministry of Defense in Canada, and they'd always talk about him. And I was about like, well, all this must be real if this guy's interested in it. Well, it's like, well, no, that just means he's just interested in it. Like, he can't be. He has to have some ulterior motive to be interested in it. Is this the same?
Yeah, don't it while I'm driving, because I need to keep my eyes on the road instead of rolling back in my head. That
was actually someone that was talking to me and Guy Malone back when Guy lived here in Nashville. He was talking about how he's like, oh, this guy's like, Paul Hellyer, he believes this stuff. Okay, great.
All right.
Yeah, appeal to pretty, especially something like that, is just no basis for anything. I mean, that's you need context. Every context is everything. So.
Mm-hmm. And Paulides' stuff is all over the place. It's all over the internet. Paulides' stuff is all over the place. It's all over the internet. It's on coast to coast, national talk radio show. Of course, someone in the government's going to hear it and be interested in it and say, "Oh, that's cool."
And on a certain level, I can see why the guy said that, and I in a certain way agree with him. I mean, I could see why somebody that's interested in this subject would say that, because he knows that there's a connection between all these weird things, and that what's going on with Paulides, and that maybe what he's getting at there has something to do with the rest of these weird things in some way. I don't know what that might be. My bombshell for the show, strangely enough, was Paulides started talking about what he thought might be the reasons for these abductions or whatever they're called, and the connection. Things he used to never speculate, but he's starting to speculate about what he thinks might be going on.
Really?
And I don't remember exactly what he said, but he engaged in some light speculation, which he's never done before. To me, that was the bombshell, actually.
And didn't they try to connect it a bit to Skinwalker Ranch as well? I think that was in the synopsis.
Yeah. That some of the same stuff, might be operant or was operant or whatever at the Skinwalker Ranch at the time that Nids, Bigelow, and whoever the hell else was there. The stuff that was going on with them, the weirdness, the interaction with people, et cetera, et cetera. Like you heard on my show, or saw in the film, or read it in the book. Yeah. And I can totally see that. Anybody who's listened to Paulides and his stuff and read that book and knows about Skinwalker, you can make that connection very easily.
Sure.
But what's causing it is you can't. That's the $64,000 question, or the thing behind the curtain, or whatever the hell it is. We don't know. We can see the shadow, but we don't know what's causing the shadow.
Right. As always. All right, let's look at some of these news stories. Actually, this one. Now let's do the UFO one first. Where's the UFO one?
UFO first.
It's called "Where Have All the UFOs Gone?" Blame the movies. And it's saying that UFO sightings have been declining since 2014. And the basic gist of the article, which is in thestar.com, is that it's partially the fault of movies that people are losing interest in this type of stuff. Because it's so ho-hum nowadays that it's just people don't care.
Yeah, well, you should talk to Chris Ricciardi, because he says that is basically a cherry picking of the data to be able to write an article. And I tend to agree with him, because according to his data, at least in Canada, and as well as other places, sightings are about the same, and some places more. So
okay.
I think this is an example of cherry picking data for an article.
Yeah, it says It says the decline began in 2016, a peak year for UFOs, and by last year, the total number of sightings had reached just 55% of the 2014 tally.
That's based on somebody's. Well, I said according to Chris, who is I respect as a level-headed researcher. That is an example of, like I said, cherry-picking data in order to prove a point that can be argued absolutely opposite.
It says the Guardian quotes several academics as to why this is happening, with various theories advanced, but the author of the piece, Philip Jekyll, reports the shocking truth out there may be that more people just don't care about UFOs. As we are accustomed to being inundated with wild claims churned out by politicians, media, and advertisers, the next report of UFO is no more believed than the long-range weather forecast.
That's fine, I guess so, but
yeah,
that's a comment on the social climate, not on how many people are reporting things. Maybe they're saying that people aren't reporting them because they just think that it's so normal to have crazy stuff going on that this crazy stuff doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
I think, like I said, I think that's a misrepresentation of actual data that has been gathered over the last few years. I mean, what you say, academics, it's like, well, then you've got a self-selected group of people that would like to say it's craziness, that it's crazy, silly people that just don't know what they're talking about kind of argument. That always makes me suspicious.
Seriah, is it saying that people see this stuff in the movies now, so they're not either looking up at the sky, or they're just seeing stuff in the sky and it's become
this
normal to them?
This guy says the rocket ships on sci-fi screens today are simply boring, whether they are piloted by Earthlings or space aliens. These creations by model makers and special effects wizards fail to excite the eye and mind, and hence the imagination that would lead us to see wonderful, strange things in the sky. So it kind of sounds like he's saying we see these things because we're excited by movies and stuff, and the way that movies are treating the stuff is just boring now.
Yeah, that's a much better explanation of what I was just saying. Meaning, people are seeing these things because every time a movie comes out, UFO sightings go up, which is not true.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're saying the opposite. People are so tired of it that their imagination can't come up with these things that they imagine to see flying through the sky. That's the message I get from that.
Yes.
BS.
Yep. Absolutely. That's why I wanted to start with that one too. There was I think another UFO one we had here.
How do you really feel about that, Greg? Don't hold back on it.
But don't swear.
That is BS because it is based on an emotional argument rather than an argument from the data.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to this one. I thought I had another UFO one, but we don't. This is really interesting. Photosynthesizing bacteria found thriving thousands of feet below the Earth's surface. And basically, this is bacteria they have found that is, as they said, thriving with absolutely no sunlight, but it's still going through the processes of photosynthesis. And the implication of this is that life literally can just go anywhere.
It does, but what is photo of the synthesis then?
I don't know if they know.
Converting some other form of energy into food, as in chemical or heat energy.
Right.
So there might be a misnomer there because there's no photosynthesis thousands of feet below the Earth. It's pitch black.
Right. But this is how this bacteria tends to exist, and that's why they're saying that. Yeah. I don't think they exactly know why. It says it suggests that the underground microbes are consuming hydrogen gas to get their fuel.
Yeah. That's those are called extremophiles.
Yeah.
Those exist in all kinds of hydrothermal vents and in sulfuric acid pools at the bottom of the ocean, things like that. There's a really good book I read quite a few years ago called Strange Life. And it's the entire book is on extremophiles and how they exist and what they exist with, and that life can exist in environments that we think are completely ridiculous and poisonous, and so the implication is that some of these types of life can exist off the Earth, like on Mars or underneath the ice of what is it, Io or Europa?
Europa.
Based on, and the heating based on like tidal fluctuations and the heat that caused. Anyway, but the implication is that if life can exist,
and
no leap of faith to think it can exist in a hostile environment elsewhere.
And that actually leads us to the next article, which is Mars could have had underground life for millions of years, which is exactly what you're saying. And they're saying, we need to start scanning deeper across the surface of Mars to potentially find existing life. Because this stuff does exist at those levels.
Yeah. And that's only life as we know it. I mean, we only discovered, what are those, prions, like in this century or last century?
Oh, yeah.
And they don't exist. They're considered life, but they don't exist in the way that we think life does. But they're able to reproduce and all that, just like something we consider life. So I don't know what I'm not a scientist. I don't know what the markers would be for life elsewhere. And maybe it looked like an inert rock, but it might be doing something in a way that we don't know, or prepared to know about, or prepared to scan for.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I'm an idiot. I would not know how they would go about that. I'm sure there's very smart people that can tell us, how they would scan for that for a different type of life than we know.
Seriah, going back to the first article about the life there underground.
Mm-hmm.
Now, is it photosynthesis, or is it something that is similar to photosynthesis? They're calling photosynthesis.
Right. Well, that's it. They're seeing something that looks like photosynthesis because that's what this bacteria uses.
Right.
But they're using they think this hydrogen gas in the rocks in order to create the same fuel that photosynthesis would normally drive.
How far down is it? Does it say in the article?
2,011 foot long borehole into the rock is what they used.
Borehole.
Is that right next to the
borehole?
Is that right next to the hole that leads to hell? Is that right next to?
Maybe, yeah. Or what was the other one?
I always loved recording.
You always loved what?
I always loved that recording that Art Bell would play of the sound of hell.
Oh yeah, yep.
It sounded like a really big party or something.
Soraya down there playing some metal. That's what's going on.
They're just hearing my show. That's all.
It's last exit for the lost.
All right. So let's look at this one. The U.S. military could turn insects into weapons, say researchers. And this is from the Daily Grail. Red Pill actually suggested we go over this one. He was supposed to be with us tonight, but we think he may have dozed. In their paper, Agricultural Research or New Bioweapons System, the scientists explain that the DARPA program Insect Allies appears on the surface to be exploring ways of introducing genetic modifications into crops directly in the fields by dispersing infectious genetically modified viruses that have been engineered to edit crop chromosomes via insects. But the scientists say...
Sounds like the X-Files, man. Sounds
like
the Bees and X-Files.
The scientists say the stated aims of the program don't appear to have any great significance or capability to actually enhance U.S. agriculture or respond to national emergencies. As a result, they say the program may be instead widely perceived as an effort to develop biological agents for hostile purposes and their means of delivery, which, if true, would constitute a breach of the Biological Weapons Convention.
Oh, I'm sure that's already been breached, but that's a whole other show.
Yeah, well, that's true. So that's, not surprising in the slightest. A little scary, but not surprising.
Yeah, I think we've got to be careful about drawing too many conclusions too. But
sure.
It would not be out of line with historical precedent.
Yes. And that's like what was the I didn't pull the article up, but it made national news where there are these really tiny chips that China got into like Amazon and stuff like that to steal data. Either of you see that one?
To steal what?
Data. Am I the only one of
data?
Data, like information.
Oh, yes, I did see that.
This is new to me.
Yeah, let me see if I can... China used a tiny chip in a hack that infiltrated U.S. companies. And this thing is really, really tiny. Let's see if I can get through this. This is a long article. Yeah, it is like... You can barely see it on someone's fingertip. But it made Bloomberg Business Week.
You know, why does this country even exist anymore? Because it seems like Russia and China have turned asymmetric warfare into an art form at this point. There's got to be people in this government that we don't know about that are countering those things, or we'd be all speaking Chinese right now.
Oh, of course.
Or Russian or whatever.
Well, maybe it's not to their benefit though.
All we hear about is the horrible threats.
It's not to who's
what about our horrible threats or our countermeasures for the horrible threats? Because putting that out in the news probably would indicate that we had publicly announced that we have countered the threat. We'd probably just prefer to just counter the threat and shut up about it, which is the smart thing to do.
True.
Actually, shutting up about it is a smart thing to do in a lot of cases.
Fair enough. But yeah, that's the level technology has gotten to is even nowadays is just frightening, and it's jumping forward in leaps and bounds, and who knows what there is out there that we have no idea about.
This is just the stuff we're hearing about, exactly, just like you said. You know, here's a trickle of something scary. The real scary stuff would probably make you run screaming, down the street. You would lose your live if you really knew what was going on.
Yes, yeah. All right, so this one comes from Scientific American, and Adam sent this one along. And this is more of a theoretical thing. It says, orbital forensics hint at sun's long lost planet.
Okay.
Clues hidden today's orbits reveal the violent origins of the solar system and just maybe a rogue giant kicked out long ago. And basically it's saying when they're running simulations for the creation of the solar system, it doesn't work. And in almost every case, at least Uranus and possibly Neptune will have been kicked out by Jupiter's gravity. And so the only simulation that even came close was to add another planet the size of Uranus or Neptune between Saturn and Uranus. And at that point, that planet gets kicked out of the solar system. But even then, it barely works. But it's the only one. It's the only one. I think it said that only occurred 1% of the time.
I think they messed out on a decimal place and it's totally screwed up and they're wrong. Hand on the forehead. Oh, Jesus.
I was talking to a friend earlier, and that told me about this, and he said that what he had been reading about was that there is this idea that there is a planet, like somewhere I think close to the Oort cloud, which is way far out there.
Right.
Yeah. And that's like the furthest you can get in the solar system, and then you're in interstellar space. So he said that this planet, and there's also talk of that it could actually have a moon as well. I don't know. I guess it's how the orbits and all that. But they said like the closest it would get to the sun is like 66 astronomical units, of which an astronomical unit is the distance between the Earth and the sun.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever that distance is, times that by 66. So it's way, way out there.
How far is Pluto? That's got to be further than 66, isn't it?
Yeah, that's
sure.
that's the closest that it would get. What is it? The perihelion. That's the closest that it would get in its orbit. So it's much further out there.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah. I have read a few of these stories. I culled some of these for the Coast News too, where they were talking about a planet 9 or planet 10, and that depending on what you think Pluto is.
And Pluto actually gets closer. It has a weird orbit, so it actually gets closer than Neptune at certain points into the sun.
Yeah, it's got an extremely elliptical orbit. Yeah, and it's off center from the other planets, I think, too.
Yes. And
off the ecliptic too by a little bit.
So there's also the theory that I rather like, put forth by Walter Cruttendon, that, well, at least popularized a little bit by Walter Cruttendon, that we're actually in a binary star system. And if you put that into the equation, it actually solves most of the solar system issues as to why things are the way they are. There's a group.
Is it a black hole or a white dwarf or something?
No, he leans toward it being Sirius. Sirius is. What was that? Oh, Sirius is moving towards us. It actually fits into the mathematics of precession perfectly, because the idea is that precession is not caused by the wobble of the Earth, which can't be scientifically proven. Every time they try to do the math for it, it comes out wrong. But if you take into account another rotation, you find that precession is accounted for.
So is he saying that Sirius is a sister star?
Right, that our sun and Sirius rotate around the same center of gravity. And that
is there in other parts of the universe for a star system that's that far apart?
Well, we wouldn't know, because we haven't been examining that long. You know, when you think about it, it's only been a few decades that we've been able to determine this stuff.
Right. No, I meant, was there any observable stars in the rest of the galaxy that are that far apart? I don't know how many light years to Sirius. It's going to be more than 4, because that's the closest. But how many? You know, what is the limit for a gravitational attraction to cause two stars to rotate about each other on a center of gravity? I mean, how far out does the gravity get? Or is it just really, really, really slow and subtle?
Well, the rotation would be 24,000 years.
Okay.
Because that's the precession of the equinox. It's currently 8 light years away from us.
Oh, okay. So it's twice the nearest.
Right, and this fits into the whole great year concept. That's 24,000 years. That also connects directly to the precession of the equinox, and the idea that there's a sister star. There's a group called the Sirius Foundation. I believe they're in Canada, and the last time Sirius B moved in front of Sirius A, they determined that there was a permutation in the spin of the Earth, and that shouldn't have happened if they're not somehow connected.
Oh, okay, you mean a perturbation?
Yes, I do.
So is the gravity that's coming from Sirius, or the interaction between our sun and Sirius, is that somehow causing precession? Is that what they're saying?
No, the actual that we're actually spinning around another center of gravity, and that's what causes precession.
Okay, so the sun and Sirius are being affected by something else, which also affects us.
Right.
Okay.
So there's, and I believe Laird Scranton said that he thinks there's a number of stars moving around the same center of gravity in this part of the solar system. Or this part of the galaxy.
Ah. So is this, are we talking like a black hole or something? Something that's massive?
Well, you wouldn't need it. You wouldn't need it. Most solar systems in the galaxy are at least binary. So we're actually odd not being binary.
Okay, yeah.
So
that's true.
Yeah, and the way he had it laid out, the Sirius would move as close to us as just outside the Oort cloud.
Of course.
Thus,
about the whole binary stuff, when you said that, I immediately got the, about that Jupiter is actually a failed star.
Right.
So we could have been a binary star system.
Possibly.
Of course, we wouldn't be here having this discussion.
No, we might.
I'm worried when Sirius gets close and knocks all those comets and crap out of their stable orbits in the Oort cloud, and they all come zipping towards Earth and destroy us.
Hey, somebody call Randall Carlson.
Well, it's going to be a while.
Yeah.
I think because I think we're just on the upswing. If that's the case, we're just on the upswing, and we're looking at another like 20,000 years before that gets close to us.
What relief!
But it's a fascinating to think about. And when you get to the like the Dogon tribe and stuff, that a lot of these ancient cultures venerate Sirius. Sirius is very important.
Ancient Egypt did as well, yeah.
And there's a lot of these ancient cultures too. There's at least a handful that considered Sirius our other sun.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. I did know about that. I read the Robert K.G. Temple book a long time ago.
Yeah, same here. What cultures do you know?
Not off the top of my head. I would totally recommend the Lost Star of Myth and Time, I think it is, that Cruttenton wrote. It's a fantastic book.
Wow.
But he covers all of that.
That's fascinating.
And if you bring the electric universe into it, one of the things I had asked Wallace Stonehill when he was on was that if like an electrical connection through space could hold between Sirius and the sun, and he reluctantly said yes, following very quickly with he didn't think Sirius was a binary star of ours, but that's fine. Like, I just wanted to know if in an electrical model that was possible. So there may be more than just gravity going on. We may have,
I don't know. Yeah, go ahead.
Our stars may have an electrical connection that keeps them connected at such a distance. And it may be a norm throughout the galaxy. I mean, like I said, we haven't been observing this stuff very long, so we're only going to see small movement in the time that we've been watching.
Well, it makes you wonder if these ancient civilizations are wherever they got their information from, whether this may have been known in the past, and we're just kind of rediscovering this.
Yeah. Well, that's the whole great year theory too. That consciousness changes as Sirius grows closer. Just the way that sun affects our consciousness, a second star affects it even stronger.
Huh.
And so we become more enlightened and such as we move into that golden age time period, which also corresponds to the
extrapolation to me. Go ahead.
Huh? What'd you say?
Starting to sound very extrapolation happy to me, but go ahead.
Well, it's a lot of
understand.
It's a lot of connections. There's not proof of much. I mean, the things we have proof of are basically come from the Sirius Foundation, who find that there is a effect on the spin of the Earth when Sirius B moved in front of Sirius A, and that shouldn't have happened. And you have the fact that it's moving toward us. Besides that, you have a lot of ancient cultures talking about Sirius. Some of them referring to it as a second star. Also, in Sumerian, Nibiru actually meant Sirius, which is very interesting to me.
Yeah.
That is fascinating. Interesting, dude.
And I threw out the random thought idea, sort of the thought game of, what if there was a another culture that we interacted with, and they're on a planet circling Sirius.
So are you saying that?
What was that?
Sirius gets closer than we're able to get together or something? Like what?
Right. That maybe there's life on another planet around Sirius.
Yeah, possibly. I'm more enamored of the idea of a civilization advanced enough to contact us is probably not going to be a physical space travel civilization anymore.
True. Well, when you look at Laird Scranton's work, he talks about how these beings that taught the Dogon, they don't seem to be physical beings. They seem to have some other sort of existence. They're not like
the Namo or whatever.
Yeah, is it Namu?
I think that's what they call them. Yeah.
But he shows that they seem to have sort of a etheric sort of existence. They're not, and they seem to affect humans badly. Like they only let certain humans talk to them.
Yeah.
So
I'm reminded of Saint. What was her name? Maria of Agreda, the blue nun from New Mexico that said that supposedly was out there teaching tribes Christianity, and when the Spanish finally got there, there were a bunch of tribes in a certain area of New Mexico that were all ready to be like accepted into the church because they said they'd already been taught by somebody, and that Maria of Agreda, I think she's called. She was Spanish, and she said that she traveled to this place in New Mexico, and the tribes, when they got there, supposedly said the same thing. I have not heard any. That's the story, and I don't know if it's 100% true. I have no idea. It's led New Mexico. She is a saint in the Catholic Church, and the process for people becoming saints is not easy whatsoever. They're actually checked up on pretty heavily before anybody issues any saintly recommendations.
Right.
A lot of the mundane stuff had to check out first. So whether that runs into things about what were people thinking then, whether you trust the Catholic Church, I think it's a lot harder for a woman to get sainthood than a man. So who knows? There's a lot of factors there.
Okay, so the Indians said that they got some kind of spiritual influence from someone?
That they were actually taught Christianity by this woman.
Yeah, years before the Spanish actually got there, and when they got there, the native populations said, "Hey, we're Catholic already, or we're ready, or whatever the hell," and the monks or the priests were like, "What? Where the hell did you learn all this?" Like, sure, fine, but how the hell do you know all this? And they said a woman had appeared to them in a blue dress or a habit or whatever you want to call it, and taught them. So she was called the Blue Nun, or her name was Mary of Agreda, because that's where she was from, Agreda, Spain.
And she said she did
I think it was Mary of Agreda. She what?
She said she did that too?
Yes.
Huh.
Yes, they checked on both ends of the story, and it matched up enough for the inquisitory powers of the church, and they said, "Okay, this is legit."
So we got some bilocation going on here.
Yeah, exactly. So this is why I said that I'm more interested in a not a physical contact, but more of a mental, conscious, whatever you want to call it, that may manifest as physical occasionally contact with another civilization, because it's just too goddamn difficult, unless you talk about wormholes or inflation theory or whatever it is, of getting physical crafts to come here.
Right.
Oh.
And we don't know if any of that stuff is real either. That's the other thing. I mean, things like wormholes and even black holes are thrown around a lot, but we actually have no proof of them.
No, it's all theoretical, and right now, apparently, as far as I understand it, you'd have to have so much energy to be able to fold space. This is the inflation theory, to fold space-time or space in a way that one piece of space was next to another that wasn't next to it before. like the energy is like the sun's output for a year or something to be able to do it with the theories right now. So he said that it's theoretically possible, but it'd be like incredible amounts of energy required to do such a thing. Doesn't rule it out, but it does. To me, it seems a lot more efficient that these things are done through what we might call, consciousness or telepathy or whatever the hell. I know I sound like I'm supporting one BS with another BS, but that interests me right now. I think that's a fascinating idea to me.
Well,
it's my idea. I mean, this has been proposed by a bunch of people way smarter than me.
I just sent you an article about her, Seriah. You can check it out whenever you want. It talks about her bilocation, mystical bilocation is what it was called, and that she appeared to the Indians and taught them about Christianity.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with that story.
Yeah, this is the first.
What was her name?
I've been familiar with it too. Mary of, well, it says Mary of, I guess, Jesus of Agreda.
Agreda, Agreda.
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Okay, I didn't know if it was like, I didn't know if it was Mary or not. Usually it's Mary or Maria. That's like, 90%.
She was born Maria Coronel E. de Arana.
Okay.
So it says, between 1620 and 1623, Mary of Jesus reported that she was often transported by the aid of the angels to settlements of a people called Humanos. The Humano Indians of New Spain, what is today Texas and New Mexico, had long been requesting missionaries, possibly hoping for protection from the Apaches. Eventually, a mission led by the Franciscan friar Juan de Salas visited them in 1629.
Yeah.
I did not know that story. That's really fascinating.
So it goes on, the abbess reported further but less frequent visits afterwards, all while she physically remained in the monastery at Agreda. They thus are considered bilocations, an event where a person is or seems to be in two places at the same time. Before sending the friars, Father Alonso de Benavides, custodian of New Mexico, asked the natives why they were so eager to be baptized. They said they had been visited by a lady in blue who had told them to ask the followers for help, pointing to a painting of a nun in a blue habit and saying she was dressed like that but was a beautiful young girl. The Humanos visiting is led to indicate that the lady in blue had visited them in the area now known as the Salinas National Monument.
Where was it?
Salinas National Monument.
Okay, I guess that's Salinas, New Mexico or something. Anyway, I think it's maybe southeast of Albuquerque. I'm not exactly sure.
Yeah, that's looks like that's where it is. It's a pueblo.
Okay, yeah. All right, I got like probably 70% of that right. Excellent.
I wonder if does what's her name? The one that's written the UFO book, the lady, the doctor, drawing
Diana Pasolka.
Thank you. She must have written. Has she written about her?
Yes.
Yeah, that's wow.
I knew of it from New Mexico history, but yeah, Diana Pasolka has written about that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So David Metcalf had actually posted that Preston Nichols had passed away. And I've never read his books, but he wrote books on the Montauk Project, which pretty much inspired Stranger Things. Are you guys familiar with him?
Yeah. Yeah, I'm familiar with him. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Adam's probably way more familiar with him than I am, but yeah, I knew he was. I think I even talked to him a couple times.
Was he the one that? I don't know. This is going live. This is going on the radio. I don't know if I should say it. I think he was the one that had that weird, like, masturbation therapy for young men.
Really?
I think that was him. Yeah. He was the one. He was in there with that same milieu as like Al Bielek. It was Preston Nichols, and there was another guy. I can't remember the other guy's name, but Preston Nichols and Al Bielek were the main two,
Mm-hmm.
and they both had that same kind of like we got age regressed and sent back into the portal, back to 1920 or something. And yeah, the whole Montauk thing is just weird.
Yes.
These guys definitely had that. There was definitely either some kind of mental illness, or they may have actually. I mean, I have a theory that they actually might have actually been messed with as some kind of experiment. Because there's some indication that the Montauk stuff may have actually been a mind control thing.
Right. And yes, masturbation figures into this. I just did a quick search.
Yes. Yeah. That was him. Yeah. But he had some controversy. I think Go Rightly talks about that in one of his articles about Montauk. But yeah, I wasn't aware that he I wasn't actually aware that he was even still alive, much less that he just died. I know Bielek died quite a few years ago. Or did he? That's the thing.
I think so. You guys are so brave delving into this. The signal to noise to me just makes it not. I just don't pay attention to it as much as I probably should, or anymore as I did in the past.
Montauk is a whole bunch of fun. Well, it's funny about the Montauk stuff because Al Bielek and Preston Nichols to a certain extent, but mainly Bielek, So they had this idea that he started out life as this guy named Duncan Cameron, I think was the name. And he was on the Philadelphia experiment. And they jumped off the USS Eldridge and they ended up on Montauk on the edge of Long Island in 1983. It's funny though that Al Bielek talked about this in the early to mid 90s, which was 10 years after the Philadelphia Experiment movie came out, which had the exact same plot where two guys jump off the ship and they end up in 1983. But I digress. Right. So that
a lot
happened,
of the stuff
and then he went back, right? Duncan Cameron goes back, and then he tries to expose the project. And then the evil people that get control of the project age regress him and send him back through a time portal to the 1920s as Al Bielek. Now, what's funny about that?
Everything?
Oh, yeah. But what's interesting about that is a guy that I had on my show, Captain K, who was the Martian super soldier guy, said the exact same thing. That they age regressed him and sent him back through time. And Corey Good says that same thing now. So these guys just stole Al Bielek's stick, man. Huh. They stole his thing. Yeah. So you see, like
a lot of this stuff.
It's like a mythology that develops.
Yeah, this stuff is so ridiculously literal. It makes me take it less seriously. You know what I mean?
Yes.
If it was less literal, I would believe it more. Like all this. It's like I can't remember who said. I think Aaron Gullius said this. That the best conspiracy stuff. Everything's tied up. There's no loose ends.
Hmm.
Because if there's loose ends in your conspiracy theory, then it's no good. So they got to tie up all the loose ends. And to me, anything that still has so many loose ends, you can't make head or tail of it. But there's a core of something there that's probably going on in reality. But there's so much literalness and logic in a lot of these things that it really turns me off.
Well, you know what's funny? You know what's funny about the Corey Good stuff is just like Seriah said, no one took the time to just research that and say, you're saying the exact same thing Al Bielek said 20 years ago. And you're saying the exact same thing this other guy, Captain K, was saying 3 years ago.
Yeah.
You know, so it's obvious that you're just borrowing it. You're just borrowing the same kind of mythology and just bringing it in, making it your own.
Yeah, it worked last time.
Yeah. And people just keep falling for the same old stuff again and again and again.
Mm-hmm.
Because it sounds cool. Basically, yeah, that's really what it comes down to.
Well, that and people don't learn from history.
Worked last time.
Yeah.
And like I said, it worked last time.
Mm-hmm.
That never.
You know, it's like a remake of a movie.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's like when, like I said before, when Al Bielek, and I remember hearing him on Coast to Coast when he was talking about that, and I remember about jumping off the ship and ending up on Montauk in 1983, and like I loved the Philadelphia Experiment when I was a kid.
Sure.
And I was like, wow, that's just like the movie. I knew then, like in 1995, Al Bielek was full of it. You know?
The book originally written by Bill Moore and William Moore and Charles Burlett in 1977 or 8, I think.
Yeah,
I think that's the first thing I read about it. Yeah.
And the whole Philadelphia Experiment, that whole thing is completely built on a misunderstanding. And was it the guy's name was Allende?
Carlos Allende.
What was the researcher's name? That the UFO researcher that he got in touch with. Greg, do you remember his name? But he later ended up dead in his car. Was it Palmer?
Was that Jessup?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
It was Morris K. Jessup, yeah.
Yeah, Morris K. Jessup. So he wrote that book, and Allende had, like, notated in it, said where he was wrong or where he was right. And he sent the book to him.
You mean the case for the UFO?
Yeah. And then
Allende said that he had.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody ever knew exactly who it was, but Allende claimed he was A, B, and Jemmy, or whoever the three colors of ink and the special edition, Vero edition of Case for the UFO. Yeah. Carl Allen claimed he had done that, but nobody ever found any proof of it.
Okay.
As far as I know,
I think I'm mixing a couple of things, getting my chronology wrong. I think, but
I might be too.
They did get in touch with each other, and he told Jessup about this experiment where he supposedly had heard about the Eldridge becoming invisible, and now it's kind of thought that what happened was that if Allende had heard that, but it was really some kind of experiment to try to make a ship invisible to radar.
Yeah, radar or demagnetize it so mines wouldn't stick to it.
Right. And
or
so
something like that. Although I don't know.
It was just built on a complete misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And the testimony of a crazy person. Bill Moore told me once that he had a car ride with Allende once, and he was batshit crazy.
No way. I don't believe that.
When he was researching Philadelphia Experiment. Yeah, I'm sorry. Was I not supposed to say that on the radio? Sorry.
I can edit.
Okay. He was bat poop crazy. Yeah, he said he was driving with him in Colorado once during an electrical storm, and he said that the electrical storm was due to the Tesla technology that was still there and that the Navy was operating at the time or some damn thing. Like, no, it's an electrical storm, you moron.
Wow. But there are a lot of people who look at everything like that in that sort of conspiratorial sort of view.
I actually have a funny story for you guys.
All right.
Dr. Future, my good friend, he told me the other night that he knew a guy that actually brought up a lawsuit. I don't remember what the lawsuit was for, but he brought up this lawsuit, and he put on there the plaintiffs. It was him and Jesus Christ. And it was against Bill Clinton and Satan. And the other thing that the guy did was he was pushing for the 10 Commandments to be put somewhere in some courthouse, and they actually wrote Charlton Heston to come, because he wanted Charlton Heston to come in to the courtroom dressed as Moses for the 10 Commandments. And Charlton Heston actually turned him down.
Wow.
I saw it in the movie.
Characters, man. Characters.
Well, that is what makes some of this very entertaining.
I've seen him too. I had a friend that my late friend Wes Nations. He used to work at Kinko's. He put out a magazine called Crash Collusion, which was an early UFO conspiracy psychedelic zine. He worked at Kinko's. He made us all up T-shirts that said, "I seen him too."
Oh, that's nice.
I-F-E-E-N 'EMTOO. I seen him too.
That's great.
He also had a guy that used to write him letters to the magazine, and every letter he wrote, the first letter he wrote, he says, "I am 12% omnipotent," he said at the end of the letter. And the next letter, he was like, "I'm 28% omnipotent." And the last letter he wrote him, he was like 98% omnipotent. So he made a T-shirt that I'm 98% omnipotent.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome.
Yeah. Another thing, a guy he worked with Dave Reimer, who used to be a friend of ours. He also worked at Kinko's with him. You remember those love stamps?
Yeah.
They still have them. It says Love USA on it. He made up stamps with an alien head on it, like the typical alien head had love underneath it, and he sent them to us in the mail, and damned if they didn't get canceled and used. Fake alien head love stamps.
Wow.
I think I still got it. If I can find them in my files, I'll put them up online somewhere.
That's awesome.
Yeah, we were all totally impressed. They went to the mail. Nobody at the post office said a word. Oh, they must have alien head love stamps now. Okay, there you go.
Huh.
They're nice color, peach colored or something. They were nice.
Wow. So if we go back to the Skinwalker Ranch, we were talking a little bit off the air about the documentary, and I got I had a lot of people kind of agree with our assessment that they were pretty disappointed in it for one reason or another. A couple of people accused us of just doing a show that we could rip on it with, and I had to explain the last podcast that we hadn't actually watched it yet and all expected to like it when we decided to do the show. What was the question I was just going to ask? Oh, Greg, as far as the new owners go, I mean, you talked to Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. We sent everyone to your show to hear that interview.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on the new owner and the secrecy around them?
The new owner, as far as I can tell, is somebody that is he wants to do sort of be Bigelow, but do him one better and do a different methodology, a more thorough methodology, and maybe learn from any inadequacies or mistakes or whatever you want to call it, Bigelow made, as much as he can gather from what, I don't think Bigelow's given him any access to any information. I'm not sure. But that, the consensus among people that don't normally agree on anything else has been, the guy does want to, one, like I said, do a thorough job, and two, make the information public as much as he can after they've finished what they're doing, which may be a year, 5 years later, maybe longer after they finish. So it's the mood is hopeful at the moment.
So I want to ask you, Greg, is the documentary kind of like the beginning of that push? Is that the first step in getting the word out?
I wouldn't say that as an obvious thing, but it's a possibility. I'm just speculating here. I know no inside information about that. Truly.
Sure. I'm just wondering. It seems to me like that's what it is. Get it? Because like we were saying before, for us, this is a lot of it was kind of old hat. But if you don't know anything about the Skinwalker Ranch, you're in for a treat with this one.
Yeah.
So
if you've already read the book and all that, there's some cool stuff in there, but it's the information there. It's mostly in the book, I think. And I haven't seen all the extra footage and all that. I do not know if there's something different in there. I think Corbell says there is. I haven't seen it, so I can't make a determination on it. But it's not for people that are into it. If you're already into it, then you probably know pretty much what's in there. Yeah, and you get to see George Knapp square.
Yeah, that was the same point. And like I said before on that show, I mean, the book was released 13 years ago. Yeah. Like for us old people, it doesn't seem like that's a long time ago. But there's a lot of people that have not heard that are now in their 30s that have not heard of this.
Right.
So just putting that out there.
I did have someone say he tried to watch it with his father, who had no idea about the whole Skinwalker thing, and his father was completely lost because they didn't give enough exposition as to what the whole Skinwalker Ranch was.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's kind of hard to watch it. The crowd that listens to your show and my show and is into all this stuff. It's kind of hard to watch it and then not realize somebody coming in completely blind what they would think of it. Somebody that had never heard of it before. I don't know. I would never know that they might be lost because I have no benchmark for that. Because we've all been into it for so long, so we look at it a certain way, and people are going to review it that way. But what about somebody that's never seen it? What's their review?
Yeah.
Well, Corbell does do a good job of giving you kind of like the history and background of that region. I mean, he does a decent job.
Prepared for the way that story is told. I don't know. Sometimes older people ingest information differently.
Yeah, fair enough. I also got an email about the whole Sunspot Solar Observatory issue, which was kind of interesting. He said he has been to Sunspot, and it's not a town. It's a small scientific community open to the public. Said when we visited, the observatory was open to the public. We walked in the unlocked door and could watch the monitored solar activity without any restrictions. Visitors can wander about the community at will, and the views from high on the mountaintop on the white sands, high on this mountaintop on the white sands on the desert floor below, where the Holloman Air Force Base is located, are outstanding. It's a beautiful location high in the mountains at the end of a long winding road, and having a post office is probably only because it's too far to go into Cloudcroft daily for news. It doesn't seem odd to me that investigators would take a black helicopter from Holloman to reach the base, considering its isolated location. Again, it's not a town per se, and everyone living there is working there. Although this doesn't necessarily clear the mystery of what was going on and how it was handled, being a federally funded project is not too unusual that a federal agency, i.e. the FBI, would be investigating a crime there. So that's interesting,
the story
too.
Was that somebody there had child porno on his computer or something, and they found out that it was on there, so it became a federal thing with the FBI. Then he freaked out and started threatening people there or something, and that's why the helicopter came in, because they didn't know what he was going to do. And Walter Bosley put out a whole series of video of vlogs about what he thought was going on, and his conclusion was, it's a federal thing. It's out in the middle of nowhere. How the hell are you going to get personnel up there quickly with a helicopter? So that's why the helicopter went up there, and it was no mystery to him.
The only thing that seemed weird to me is, okay, someone's downloading child pornography on a laptop, supposedly the janitor, and that causes them to shut the town down for 2 weeks, or the whole observatory area. The point was, they said he had freaked out because he thought that he was going to be in trouble, and then he was in trouble, and then he either made threats or said something that worried them, so they thought it was going to be a shooter situation. And, no?
Yeah,
okay.
No,
maybe I'm just, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about.
No. I'm saying that makes sense. That makes sense. What you say makes sense.
It makes sense, but it still seems like it could have been an overreaction.
Yeah, and my wife just pointed out they shut down a whole bunch of solar observatories. So what was up with that?
Well, they didn't necessarily shut them down. They shut down the live feeds from them on the internet.
Yeah, she said that he probably threatened to blow up the sun.
And the mystery is solved.
Yes, exactly. So you get somebody, a perceptive person from outside the circle of fanatics, and they come up with something very, very, very plausible and funny.
I'm going to go with that as the most likely option.
So if the only people that live there are the people that work there, then they just remove the people that work there.
Right.
Because that's all that is there.
Right, exactly. Yeah. And just stop letting the public in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And if
there was a guy that went over there while it was closed up with a drone and flew it around there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That was kind of fascinating. I think he had the same drone I have, which was kind of cool.
Wait, was it you?
No. I was in New Mexico 2 weeks afterwards.
And what Greg is saying about them overreacting, well, they always overreact. Somebody leaves a bag sitting around, they bring in the bomb robot. I mean,
yeah.
Fair enough.
It's a cheese sandwich, yeah. It's a bomb that looks like a cheese sandwich.
This is just kind of like this is the post 9/11 world. I mean, this is how we live, basically. Unfortunately.
Yeah, unfortunately, it's like everything could be an active shooter, so they gotta panic.
And yet they miss so many of them.
Yes, strangely. Well, I don't know. Well, yeah, the thing is that if anything even comes close to it, it's all over the news immediately. So.
Yeah.
Somebody had a wax gun, and they closed down the entire city. That's what I always wondered about. If you really wanted to do something that would really disrupt the city, the last time they did that was the DC shooters. Remember that?
No.
The snipers.
Yeah, the DC snipers. If you were a terrorist and you wanted to shut down a city for weeks, all you have to do is have somebody go out and what's that Dirty Harry one where the guy just like shoot? Was it Dirty Harry? Anyway, just have somebody just shooting people randomly from large distances that you could never find because people wouldn't go to work. That's what happened in DC. And that
yeah, I think you're talking about the first Dirty Harry, the Gemini killer.
Yes, exactly, or Scorpio or whatever, because it was supposed to be like Zodiac.
Yeah.
Even though it wasn't really what Zodiac did, but yeah, if you were a nasty smart terrorist, all you'd have to do is, start randomly shooting people from long distances. It would cripple a city. I'm surprised I'm glad it hasn't been done again, but I'm kind of surprised it never happened again. Because how do you control for that? You can't really.
That was right. That was right after 9/11 too, pretty much.
Was it?
When that? It was 2000. That was, I think, early 2002.
Yeah,
was when that happened.
Right. I think you're right. Anyway, I don't want anybody to construe that I'm thinking that should be done. I'm just wondering why it didn't happen again, because it seems such an obvious way to not get caught, or even to get caught after a long time, and so horrible fear and basically bring a city to its knees for a while.
All right, on a totally different subject, we have from the Bober Times, BOBR, astronomers have found a strange source of light. And it says the Hubble telescope discovered a mysterious infrared source relatively close to the sun. It is connected with a neutron star, but the size does not allow scientists to understand its nature. And it says it's in the heat range of the electromagnetic radiation. They discovered it with Hubble. In the vicinity of the neutron star located in the relative vicinity of the sun. This doesn't seem like it's written very well. About 800 light years away. Strange radiation was discovered by a group of researchers under the leadership of the University of Pennsylvania in collaboration with Turkish scientists. The study of the radiation source will help better understand the evolution of neutron stars, extremely dense objects that remain in place of supernova explosions. This particular neutron star belongs to a group of 7 nearby X-ray pulsars, the so-called Magnificent Seven. Astronomers believe that the young single neutron star with a strong magnetic field that are hotter than would have to be given their age and energy generated by breaking.
Proofreading does not exist on the internet.
Yeah, no kidding. We found it might not be written initially in English either. I'm not sure. We found a wide area of infrared radiation around this neutron star, the length of which is about 200 astronomical units from a pulsar. So basically, they found this infrared radiation. They have no idea what it is, and that just the fact that we probably don't even know a fraction of what's out there, honestly. Like when you see stuff like this, it's really interesting, but it shouldn't surprise anybody. We know so little about even our local cosmic neighborhood that who knows what else is further out there. We just extrapolate based on what we can see. See, I mean, I feel like, there's so much stuff out there that we don't know that articles like this shouldn't surprise anybody.
Right.
I guess not. I can't actually understand what's going on, except that they found a strange source of radiation near a star that shouldn't be there. That's very strong. Is that the gist of it?
Yeah. Basically, yeah. Something new that they've never seen before.
As instrumentation gets better, that'll happen more.
And I feel like
more people are looking. Go ahead. Sorry.
We're living where we do and the way we do. We're kind of a fish in a fishbowl. And we're looking around the room that the fish tank is in, and we're going, so everything is just like this except further out. Like we don't expect anything to be significantly different the further we get out there. So it's just like we have that sort of belief that there's only sameness beyond what we can see. So if we can understand what's right around us, then everything everywhere is like that.
Yeah, well, that's the problem. What's her name? From the Parapsychological Association, Marilyn Schlitz, I think her name, was on Coast last night, I think, and she said that we've got a problem in science and with in our civilization because we can only see what we see. We're only primed to see what we expect to see. So it's hard to, you've got to imagine stuff that's outside of what you understand to be able to understand more. But You know, that's the point of the Structure of Scientific Revolutions book, the Kuhn book.
Well, you know, we have that light spectrum, forms of light. You know, it includes infrared and also, you know, gamma radiation and all of that. So who's to say that there isn't stuff that's in between those points, or there's stuff that's just completely off the scale? We don't really honestly know.
No.
Yeah.
Till we can look at it and quantify it. Really.
Yeah. Or physical interactions that we are not aware of, because that's happening all the time. Where new discoveries are made. It's like, wow, I didn't know that. We were talking about prions earlier.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Or the extremophiles or whatever. It's like the paradigm has to be extended just far enough so that something becomes barely visible. You know?
We're not honestly really intellectually we might conceive of it, but just like the bacteria that is just on us all the time. You know, we can say like, yeah, we know that that's there, but we don't daily think about that. You know, it doesn't cross our minds all the time. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Does make sense. There are known knowns and known unknowns, but there are also unknown unknowns.
Yep. And speaking of that, this is a good one to end on from let's see, the news.com.au. Unknown life found in New York subway system. And basically they did
that. Yeah. Have you ever been on the New York subway system?
So what they did is they did they said some 15,000 forms of life were detected in DNA sampled from turnstiles, keypads, and seats of 466 of New York subway stations. And most of it's what you would expect: mozzarella, blowflies, staph, and anthrax. And it says, and then there's the weird stuff: Tasmanian devil, Himalayan yak, and Mediterranean fruit fly. But that only accounts for half the DNA collected and sequenced in the recent study of the thriving metropolis underground. The other half is unknown. And they expand a bit and explain that some of it might be wrong because we don't have this stuff down. It says they found more than 10 billion fragments of biochemical code and sifted it through a supercomputer. The only problem was the library of known DNA it was all matched to. Where does it talk about that? Because it says the DNA. So it says, let me go back here. We've only just started mapping the DNA of all world's life. The digital shelves of that library are still largely bare. So when a result matches no known life form, that's exactly what it means. It hasn't been identified and cataloged yet. Humans, blowflies, beetles, the DNA of all the above were found in abundance, but not cockroaches, because they haven't been fully sequenced yet. And why did the test throw up Tasmanian devils and Himalayan yaks? Both somewhat unlikely to use the New York subway, although I wouldn't say completely impossible, because fragments of DNA can be similar between species, and an incomplete catalog will throw up only what it knows.
Yeah, somebody's cheeseburger grease, and you think it's a Himalayan yak.
But it shows us that DNA, it's not perfect by any means, and people kind of treat it like that. More than half of the more than half of the identified bacteria came from human gastrointestinal and urogenital tracts, aka feces.
Yummy.
About a third was the mostly harmless stuff that lives on our skin. Most of the remainder
was about to make a sandwich, Seriah. Very...
Well, don't make it on the New York subway. Most of the remainder was associated with coughing or sneezing.
That's our tax dollars at work, everybody.
You need to know this stuff.
The kind of information that has to be studied.
Anyone who's been
working in the creep out department of the New York Health Department.
And anyone who's familiar with New York subways is certainly not surprised by this. And I'm guessing 30 years ago it was a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe.
But
probably people had better immunity 30 years ago, too.
That could be. The list of bacteria species they found at New York's 466 stations is revealing. 220 stations had traces of antibiotic-resistant bacteria. 215 had food poisoning bacteria. 192 carried urinary tract infections. 151 had traces of mozzarella cheese. 66 had meningitis and sepsis. 60 had sauerkraut, and 37 were harboring staph infections.
Wow.
So,
Somebody take the subway to the hospital.
I'm just gonna, next time I go there, I'm just gonna wrap myself in plastic.
Stay off the subway. Yeah, the Uber's going to be much safer for germs, right? Right.
Right. But we're only now starting to understand, how to sequence this DNA and do it properly. But I'm also, thinking about this in conjunction with like the DNA studies for Bigfoot. And anytime they say, well, there's partially unknown. Well, they kind of concentrate on that, but is that partially unknown because it's just something that hasn't been sequenced yet?
Yeah. Yeah. Some of it's mammalian or hominid, but the rest is unknown. It's like, well, where was Bigfoot sitting? Did he ride the subway?
He might have. Huh. All right. So we're about out of time. Thank both of you. Adam, where can people find you?
They can find me at conspiranormal.com and find the archives at conspiranormal.podomatic.com. And you've been seeing me here a lot lately, so I guess you can find me here.
Excellent. And Greg?
Radiomis, RadioMysterioso. RadioMysterioso.com is all my shows. And that's probably the best place.
Is that all the way back to the beginning?
Yeah, I mean, if you keep going down the list, you can go back to like 2006, I think.
Hey, Greg?
Yeah?
Should we give a Ken Thomas update on him?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I called Ken, 4 or 5 days ago? I think he's out of the hospital now, but yeah, he had, he said they told him he had a mild heart attack. He also had a collapsed diaphragm and also problems with his diabetes in his legs. But all that's been taken care of. He's recuperated. He said, I'll be out in a day or two. And he was out, I think, the next day or the day after. And now he's at home and pretty much fine. I mean, when I talked to him in the hospital, he sounded totally fine and out of pain and all that. So he's doing good now.
Good.
Well, that's good.
Excellent.
All right. Well, thank both of you.
Thank you, sir.
Sure. Thank you.
And I want to give an extra special thanks to some people who have gone above and beyond helping me out recently. Allison Cook, Dominic O'Malley, Susan Sabota, Patricia Giaquinta, and Arif Akhtar, as well as all the patrons pledging $10 or more. Super Inframan, Andy McNamara, Charles Beauregard, Craig Cisternos, Scott Morris Everett, Robert Groom, Riker and Stark, Russell Wilcoxon, Sasha Lorg, Christopher Vaughn, Samantha, Carla Mahoney, John Eddy, Chris, Mark Brady, William Lovelace, Kevin Schreck, Alex Bose, Jose Alatorre, Ben, and Alfred Tuttle. Thank you all so very much. All right, again, I apologize for the sound quality not quite being up to par and some of the background noise, but there wasn't a whole lot we could do about it. No extra Patreon segment from this conversation, but I'm hoping to get back up to 2 shows a week very, very soon. And I have some really interesting guests lined up. So hopefully things will get back to a more normal schedule of a few shows a week, or at least 2 shows a week. I'll see you next time. You have been listening to Where Did the Road Go? This show is made possible in part from our Patreons, and we thank you and everyone listening for helping us continue this exploration of the strange. You can always find everything Where Did the Road Go related at www.wheredidtheroadgo.com. and thank you so much for your support.